Hello everyone and welcome to Superstar 64. And it's this I've been on YouTube for about 5 years now at the time of this recording. So I figured I've missed like my last 2 anniversaries. First year it was like showing off my electronics collection from 2015 or whatever. And 2016 was just a live stream. 2017, I pretty much took a hiatus until eventually I decided to move channels to where I am right now. Glad to see how successful that's been. And last year, I was gonna do something, but I got lazy. But this year, I figured I've been on YouTube for 5 years. Many of you guys may be wondering, where the heck did I start out from? Probably not. Or any question I mention. Because nobody comments on my videos. I have no idea what the heck you all are thinking. Comment on the videos. I don't care anymore. I don't even care if it's a hate comment or whatever. But I figured for 5 years, I decided to tell the story on how I got super duper interested in the technology field. Not only repairing computers, but finding out what technology was like before Windows XP. And a lot of fun things like that. In fact, the story I'm about to tell pretty much tells the story of how I started collecting computers. And the protagonist of the story is so big that I'm not even gonna attempt to get it into the scene in this shot. So I'll be back in a second, hoping I can still be seen. Say hello once again to the Gateway Select 1100, or on the back here under model number it says ATX STF OXN Select 1100. This computer was manufactured on the 1st of June in 2001. To tell you how long ago that was, first, I didn't even exist, and neither did my sister. And 2, this was before, this predates Windows XP, if you couldn't tell by the sticker on the front here. This was a home computer, so it did not come with Windows 2000, but it was a bit too late to come with Windows 98. So if you couldn't tell by the sticker, this computer originally came with Windows Millennium Edition. Windows Millennium Edition. Now you may all be wondering, how did I get this computer? Why is it so special to me? And some third thing, I don't know. So let's start from the beginning, the birth of this computer, which I'm guessing began with a phone call. This computer originally belonged to my grandpa. This was a custom order from Gateway, and I have the mail order slip. I have basically everything this computer came with, besides the monitor. But the monitor I have it paired with is much better anyway. So this was a custom order from Gateway in 2001. I have all the specs. It had like 128 megs of RAM. I believe it had a 20 gig hard drive, which is still I think it still runs. I believe. I think it's the one that runs Windows 98 and XP in here. Later on down the line, it was upgraded with a 40 gig hard drive, which is a Western Digital, which runs Windows 2000. That's the main one that I always ran this thing with. It has the also impressive AMD Athlon 1100 processor, I guess. By the specs and by even the price of this thing, I'm a little bit confused as to where the number 1100 came from on the model for this thing. I have 2 guesses. The model number either came from the price of this computer or the processor speed, because the processor speed is actually 1.1 gigahertz. That's fairly fast for 2001. In fact, this thing running on Windows 2000 is actually really good. The only thing it doesn't really do incredibly well is Windows XP. Like, I can't get the newer logon screen that comes up the first time Windows XP is launched. But I mean, it runs. I highly doubt this thing is even capable of running Windows Vista before anybody asks. It never went past Windows XP. In fact, that's what I originally got this thing with. But how did I get it? Well, Grandpa used this thing, and eventually, 8 years ago or so, he actually rescued another HP computer from a flood, which ran up until early this year. Fortunately, I believe it was from about 2009 because it had originally Windows 7 on it, and it was a pretty good computer as well. But that was his successor to this computer, and so this computer sat in the closet for a very long time, not really doing much of anything, just sitting there. It wasn't harvested for parts. It still runs to this day, obviously, and eventually he began the process of attempting to extract all of his personal data from this computer, which I later found out was because he was planning on throwing this thing away. React accordingly. So, I think later I stepped in, asked if I could have it, and he said, sure, it's going to be thrown away anyways, and that's how I came into possession of this computer, and that happened, about 5 years ago, actually. Maybe six. I can't remember exactly when I got this computer, but I believe it was 2014 at some point. There's a lot of details I'm unsure of with this story, so I'm just gonna try and tell it the best I can. And so, this was around the time when I only had 2 other computers. One was the Dell Dimension E520, which was featured in the Windows Longhorn video, and probably something else, I don't remember, which was my main computer at the time. It was that I had since we got rid of my first computer, which that's an unsure story as well. Like, I have no idea what my first computer was, but from what I can gather, it was probably some sort of older Dell with a CRT monitor and probably a bunch of other old crap. But that computer is also running, and the other computer that I had at the time was an old Gateway laptop that came from somebody who is now deceased. Well, I got it from my sister, who got it from somebody who's now deceased, who will not be mentioned. But anyways, those were my 2 computers at the time, and then I got this thing. When things got crazy. To quote JonTron, I guess. So I guess I can say I started a computer collection when I was only 9 years old. Oh wait, that meme is dead. But at that time, I pretty much just got the computer. I had set it up with some old parts I got with it, which included one of the old NAR monitors. I probably have one somewhere still. I don't have one in the studio right now. It was black and it's only supported up to 1024 by 768. That was basically the monitor that I mostly remember being on, and apparently the green screen fell over again. This video is just a mess. How can I call this a 5-year anniversary special? And I ended up pairing it up with a old Dell keyboard and some sort of mouse. I eventually managed to get a Gateway Logitech branded mouse. That was the mouse and keyboard I had at the time were PS2, because from what my grandpa had told me at the time, which was what I believed, this computer, for whatever reason, didn't work with USB mice or keyboards, or at least on startup. I later figured out that this computer does work with them, and the reason they don't work with the older operating system is for is the drivers, obviously. I'm not saying that he doesn't know much about computers, because he does. I actually learned a lot from him about what I know today. So I had it paired up with PS2 devices. And now we get into more modern stuff. And to explain what his computer is today, despite, featuring a lot of it in my videos, I'm just going to go ahead and show off some of the accessories I've acquired over time. Before I go ahead and do that, I would like to mention that a lot of the information I was talking about with what I had it all paired up with before can be, a lot of those details can actually be found from this video from 2016, where I initially installed Windows 98 on the computer, which was my first tech video, the first, tech video log thing I did. But in that video, I had it paired up with that old planar monitor and the Dell keyboard. I can't remember which mouse I had because I barely even looked into it. But let me go ahead and show off my setup now. So here is the monitor I have paired up with it, which is the Gateway FPD 1520. Amazing name, I know. This one day I ended up getting a box of stuff that was in a cabin. That was just it had this monitor, keyboard, which I'll show. I'm not going to show that exact keyboard because that keyboard's the one I usually have the computer paired with. This computer does not stay in my studio, okay? So yeah, I have it over in my room at my mom's house, so that's usually where all the stuff is. But I ended up getting a keyboard, the mat that was the exact same as the other one that I'm gonna show in a bit. Main thing was that this monitor came from it. This is not the original monitor, but the main reason I have it paired with it is because the manufacture date on the back of this actually says October 2001. So I thought that was close enough to match the computer, and it turns out it fits with it very well. I believe max resolution is 1024 by 768. It does not have sound output. Those planar monitors I've been talking about, they actually were all-in-one monitors with video, sound, and actually that was about it. But that was when I ended up getting a set of speakers, which I have two sets of those speakers. Oh yeah, that was the other thing. I have two sets of those speakers, and the one is paired with the Select 1100, and the other is paired with that Dell computer I was mentioning earlier. But this one isn't too special of a monitor, though it actually has very interesting cable management, because there's no cables. You basically just have the cables come through, and they all congregate up here to a VGA and a power input. Hopefully I didn't break anything with that. On the stand here, you can actually see there's these two. You basically run the cables through these, and then up here, and then you plug them in, and they're very tightly managed, and I like that. I don't have the cables with me right now because, well, obviously, I didn't want to drag a bunch of cables with me. I tried to pull out everything without having too many cables, but so I could basically just go straight home, plug everything back in the way it was, and have it be done. But it is a very good monitor, I will say that. Although it does, for whatever reason, make this buzzing noise whenever you have it turned on and it's actually showing an image on the screen. I don't know what it is, but the Windows Whistler Part 2 video, I believe, actually featured it making that sound. So go ahead and check that out. And now on to keyboards. This is what's known as the Gateway Millennium keyboard. I believe that's what it's called. The date of manufacturing has 000920. I have no idea what the heck that's supposed to mean. But this follows the trend of a lot of PC keyboards at the time in having a million different functions in one keyboard. I move it closer. You have your standard stuff like media playback, volume up and down for Windows. I see like a share button, I guess. There's a shopping button, which probably takes you to some shopping website. Probably not Amazon at the time. It takes you to email. I believe these were probably programmable, but I don't have the software for that on the computer. So never mind that. And there's a question mark button, probably for help in like Windows or something, and a internet browser opener. There's no disk tray eject key buttons on this keyboard, which is a little bit odd. I have another similar keyboard paired up with an old HP that has a lot of these functions, but it has an eject button, which I believe is supposed to only eject a disk if it's in there. I don't know because I really can't get it to work. But the physical eject button works just fine. This keyboard I actually use with my iMac G3, and that's because this is a very early keyboard that plugs in through USB. Not only that, but it's incredibly convenient in the fact that it has a USB port for the mouse, as clearly indicated, and it has a USB port up here, just for whatever reason. You can really only feed cables in through and then plug them in. It doesn't really support like small devices or USB flash drives because they're too wide and they're gonna get stuck in there. But it is very convenient to have, and that is why this keyboard, which is I believe the first Millennium keyboard I got, this keyboard is now paired with my iMac G3. And because I don't have a mouse, I have a mouse plugged into it. Well, because I don't. Okay, let me explain a little bit further. I usually have this keyboard paired with a puck mouse, and the reason being that it's paired with my iMac G3, because the original keyboard I got with that, which was matching lime color, unfortunately ended up just quit working one day. The power button's about the only thing that works and only powers on the computer. After that, it just forces the caps lock light to stay on permanently until you shut off the computer. So that, I believe there's a logic board failure there somewhere, and the keyboard is complete junk. I don't think it exists anymore. But, unfortunate, but fortunately for me, I do have a backup keyboard that has essentially all the same features. Well, thank God for that one. There's probably a bunch of other stuff I could show, but, now let's get into the more technical side of things. Getting up from the chair now, let's take a look from the inside of this computer. So now this thing is running on 3 hard drives. This is actually the one that Whistler's installed on. If you remember from the end of Whistler Part 2, I ended up getting the Windows XP beta to just completely get stuck. So I think I ended up just downgrading it back to Actually, no, this was the original hard drive I had running 2419. I used a different hard drive in that video, which unfortunately has quit working. This hard drive is the one that currently runs Windows 98 and Windows XP. The Windows XP install on here is actually the original one, which at one point, come on, and this is the most annoying hard drive to actually take out of the system if you want to do that for some reason. I don't know if I like subjecting myself to this. Was on this hard drive. That entire system was backed up here, and there was probably more stuff on this drive than this other one at one point. But this one's been completely wiped and reinstalled Windows 2000. Eventually, the Windows 2000 install broke due to unforeseen circumstances, and then I reinstalled it, and now it works just fine. And that is the main operating system that runs on this computer. Along with that, this computer was actually my first exposure to floppy disks, which I should be able to take out. Oh, for whatever reason, oh wait, that's not even. Actually, forget that. That's my that's the zip drive I installed in here at one point. Yeah, this is one of those case designs where you can basically just slide things back and forth. Seem to have somehow gotten this thing locked in the position that it's in. And that's due to the fact that I'm an idiot and I turned it to locked to take out the drive, or close to locked. That's because I have a lazily shoved zip drive in there. But this computer was my first exposure to floppy disks. This is a 3.5 inch drive that probably originally came with it. It's Mitsumi, so yeah. I also don't think either of the CD drives are original. They might be, but I have no idea. There's a bunch of spare parts that exist that I ended up pairing with this thing or whatever. Actually, no, this thing is almost unmodified from its original configuration that I got it with, which has 512 megabytes of RAM. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but no, I did. This computer also did something that was probably a first or a second at the time, and that is including 2 USB ports in the front, which is very convenient. because this was in the early days of USB. Back to this thing now, yeah. First time I used floppy disk. Whenever I start Windows 2000 on here, it'll actually try to read whatever's in the drive before it gets to a log on screen. Which is really weird. It does make a knocking noise whenever it tries to read without a disk inserted. Rather than that, standard equipment. What's interesting, besides just about everything, if I can get everything reconnected here. What's interesting is that this thing does not actually have integrated graphics. You may think it does. In fact, this old 98 HP I have down here has integrated graphics. This doesn't. Although you can see I've kind of indented the spot where it'd probably connect at. This thing has a full-on graphics card, which I shall now demonstrate the removal of. Along with that, it has a sound card and some other stuff. Because this mostly runs on expansion cards, that's where there's only 2 slots left. This is I have no idea what the heck this thing is, graphics card. Using PCI Express. I believe it was a new standard at the time. And it only has 1 port, VGA. Epic. This will support all of your hot new games like Unreal Tournament and Duke Nukem 3D, I guess. I have no idea what the heck I'm talking about. Or Roller Coaster Tycoon, yeah, this thing definitely runs that. And now the reinsertion process. For the love of, okay. That does not like going back in. Connected to the CD drive, which I shall now unplug. Oh my god. Is the sound card. Everything is very dusty in this computer. I never cleaned it. Audio PCI 0118, I guess. Assembled in Singapore. Serial number. It doesn't have one, I guess. Yeah, this is a card. A sound card. Copyright Creative Technology Ltd. I actually think this might be a Creative Labs card, but I don't know. And you can also plug in your CD audio. Because this is like the time when they were still putting headphone jacks on CD drives. Yeah, I remember when those things existed. I sure do, because I still use them. I actually don't know why they put headphone jacks on CD drives. It's kind of weird. Here's the networking card, which maybe should have a chip here, but it doesn't. Actually, this isn't necessarily just networking. This is Ethernet. Linksys, definitely a brand name. And you have the two lights on here that you'll never see because it's in the back of the computer. And I have this thing crammed in the desk. So, fun times. Now, this thing does have built-in USB, but I'm guessing this was an add-on at one point, which is known as extra USB. And I don't even care about what branding this is. This is just USB ports on a card. 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's actually one on the inside for some reason, which is like that time when Apple decided to put a FireWire port inside their computers because they thought FireWire drives would take off. Yeah, that never happened. I mean, if you want to have a USB drive inside the computer, like, say, a modern USB Wi-Fi card or something, you can definitely do that with this. But I can guarantee you that did not come original in the computer. And I can also guarantee you that I barely ever have anything plugged into it, or really don't ever have anything plugged into it, but whatever. And finally, our amazing 56K card. It's 56K. Nobody uses this anymore. I should probably just uninstall it from the computer, but whatever, who cares? And that's essentially a comprehensive tour on the inside of this computer. And finally, we talk about its legacy. Well, pretty sure it's self-explanatory at this point. That was the computer that inspired me to start the amazing collection that is infesting my room and is taking up a crap ton of space. That's pretty much its legacy at this point. It's the first computer I ever installed, well, a lot of old operating systems on, including Windows NT 4, which was an absolute failure of an idea, which ended up turning into a success when I installed it on the Panasonic Toughbook. The reason it was a colossal failure was because it was released in 1996, and yeah, there's not a whole lot of drivers for that computer, or at least I couldn't really find them. There's supposed to be some Windows NT 4 utility that you can run on that computer, but I couldn't really get Windows NT to work too well. And for a long time, that computer was actually the oldest one I owned. And eventually, that crown was taken by the Macintosh. Actually, no. No, it really wasn't the oldest computer I had for a long time, because I had no idea that the iMac G3 was the oldest one I had for a very long time. But eventually that was dethroned by the Macintosh Centris 660 AV. And that currently serves as the oldest computer I own. So, what was the point with all of this? Well, this computer serves as a reminder as to why I even started collecting computers, repairing computers, getting into operating systems and software, and even what really, in a way, inspired me to start this YouTube channel. I know it's a bit of an infamous meme at this point that I started the channel making Go Anime videos. Oh my god, why do I even mention this anymore? But, you know what? This computer will always be the start of my collection. And there's really nothing that can take that crown away from it. Because I'm pretty sure if there is something at this point, I'm gonna have to throw that thing away. Then again, if circumstances were any different from the way they are now, we would not exist and we'd live in a time paradox or whatever. That's science stuff that I'm not even gonna bother to get into. Leave that to Vsauce, okay?
Vsauce. Michael here.
But in the end, this computer, which is not on screen right now because I'm tired of having it on this tiny little desk piece, this computer will probably be one of, if not the most important computer I've ever owned. And now it's time for the obligatory, why the heck did I even decide to change my format part of the video. Keep losing the screen. You may have noticed that this video was completely different from just about everything I've uploaded since forever now. Well, that has to do with the simple fact that I kind of want to try something a little bit different. You see, those tech video, for about the past year, pretty much the only thing I've uploaded besides Superstar 64 live streams, which you should totally go watch, by the way, but just about the only thing I've actually uploaded in the past year is tech video logs, specifically the Life in the Tech House series, which, of course, dates back to crappy Superstar 64 tech videos. I know it was a terrible name. Which dates back to the first tech video log I did with that computer. Well, the thing is, those videos, they take an idea, like an idea to work on a computer and permanently change something, essentially. They depend on things actually working the way they're supposed to, which you may remember around the end of 2018 or so. Actually, yeah, at the very end of 2018, I uploaded a video on trying to actually make a RAID configuration on a server that I own still. That never ended up working, and I've essentially scrapped that project because I realized, why do I even want a RAID configuration? Because I essentially just want that. Actually, I can't even remember why I decided to stop with that project, but I think the main thing was that I don't care if it's in a RAID configuration at this point. Those videos aren't even incredibly fun to make anymore. They are actually based around another series that's very similar called Crazy Ken's Tech Misadventures. I don't know if you've heard of it, but I think I've made self-referential jokes about how I'm copying the show. Yeah, that show's starting to get a bit overblown because that's about the only thing the Computer Clan does anymore. And I wanted to try something different. This is essentially an unscripted sit down and start recording format of a video, and I had a lot of fun with just talking about topics I'm passionate about. Not saying I'm about to become a commentary channel, no, but I kind of like making this a lot more than those tech video logs. Not saying they're canceled. Though I have had a lot of tech issues recently. I was originally going to make a video about this old thing, but unfortunately that kind of got lost in the way of me not actually knowing what to say about it. And during the process of actually fixing that, I ended up breaking the PowerBook G3, which, as you may notice, the screen is separate now. I'm gonna go ahead and keep this as not only as a reminder of that project, which ended in me buying a new PowerBook G3, which now is running off of the soul of that one. But you may have noticed throughout this video, I made a couple of references to other videos. And I decided to keep this as a prop for this type of video, where I can basically just lift it up, show something on the screen, and then put it down. As for the rest of the laptop, it's basically done. I really don't know what else to say right now. But what I want this little format to become is not really more of like a commentary channel type thing, but more like a technology connections video. If you know that channel, he talks about a lot of different things relating to technology and stuff. And I kind of like this format because I can talk about different things. In fact, another topic I wanted to talk about was laptop proprietary expansion, which will probably may or may not be out by the time that this goes live. But oh crap, I cracked the hinge on this thing. This video may or may not be live by the time that's out. So, yeah, that's essentially going to be the next topic after I record this. So, I've really run out of things to say. I don't even want to take the channel too seriously anymore. So you're gonna hear me try to crack a lot more jokes on these videos. So, but other than that, I've basically run out of things to say. So thank you all so much for watching. And for 5 years of Superstar 64. And I will see you in the night sky.